What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. It's Thursday, it's time for another player breakdown video. We have an interesting trio of players this week because all three are in different stages of their careers. I guess you could say that Mooney and Bateman are kind of in the same stage, but Cooks, a much older player. We've got a second-year player and a third-year player. I feel like usually everyone's in kind of similar parts of their careers for these breakdowns, but in this one, there's still a lot of similarities between these players, similarities on the offense, and so that's why you guys probably requested this one, number one. Same shout out as always. Put in the comment section what you want to see next week and upvote the ones that you agree with. A 10-second other shout out before things start off here. 2 flex rankings are up on site now. So now there's 2 wide receiver rankings, 3 wide receiver rankings, and then 2 wide receiver and 2 flex spot rankings now. Okay, so let's start off this breakdown with career production first, and we'll go oldest to youngest. So Brandin Cooks entering his 9th season in the NFL, turning 29 in 2 months. He has been remarkably consistent throughout his career. His rookie season was cut short due to a thumb fracture, and he was sort of weirdly phased out of the Rams offense in 2019. But if we look at the 6 other years in his career, it's comprised of 2 seasons with New Orleans, 1 season with New England, 1 season with the Rams, last 2 seasons with the Texans. He's had at least 114 targets in every year, at least 1,000 receiving yards, and at least 5 receiving touchdowns, again, every single season, even going over 75 receptions in 5 or 6 years. All told, since joining the league, he's been the wide receiver 23, 20, 10, 14, 21, 69 in that last weird season with the Rams, then 18 and 23 and half PPR points per game, averaging 11.7 half PPR points per game over his career, which is exactly what he actually did last season. And that's just like low-end wide receiver 2 to kind of flex production. That is what you have gotten with Brandin Cooks very consistently. So he's not spiking for like a top 5 season and then going down into like the low 30s. Basically every single year, he's giving you some level of wide receiver 2 production, whether that's high end 2 or low end 2. He has just been a wide receiver 2. Next up, we've got Darnell Mooney entering his 3rd season in the NFL, turning 25 this October. And he had like an okay rookie season. It wasn't anything special, but caught 61 passes, 631 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's like fine. That's not bad at all. Rookie seasons go, that's pretty decent. Then he broke out last year, committed 140 targets, caught 81 of them for 1,055 yards and 4 touchdowns, improving his wide receiver 64 in points per game finish as a rookie to wide receiver 32 last season. And I do think it's worth noting that while Mooney is obviously on an upward trend, right? I don't think we can say Brandin Cooks is on an upward trend in year 9, but upward trend for Mooney. But Cooks has outproduced even Mooney's best season in 7 of his 8 years, including his rookie season before he got hurt. So we're looking at like per game numbers. Pretty much every year of Brandin Cooks' career has been better than both of Darnell Mooney's seasons. Again, even though he's working his way up, the historical production obviously has to favor Brandin Cooks. And then we have Bateman, who is obviously going to lose the historical production category, given that he was a rookie last year. For him to have come out as a rookie, I mean, if he had like 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns as a rookie last year, and he was expecting the target bump he's going to see this year, obviously, like, he's just a slam dunk winner. He's a first-round pick, right? So he obviously is going to lose in this historical production category, entering year 2. Turning 23 in November, so still very young. He's coming off an okay rookie season, 46 receptions, 515 yards, 1 touchdown, and worth pointing out that those numbers are with missing the first 5 games with the groin strain that he suffered over the summer. So that wasn't through like a full 17-game season. So yeah, historical production, it's going to be a win for Cooks, second Mooney, next Bateman. But as we know, things change, and we don't really care about the past when we're drafting players this season. We care about the future. So what is going to change for each of these players? For Cooks, Not a whole lot, but some things will. Davis Mills played in all but 4 games last year, so he basically still had the quarterback last year that he's going to have this season. And while Nico Collins is probably going to take a step forward, and John Mechie will eventually be a really solid number 2 option in this offense, it's pretty clear that Brandin Cooks is going to remain the number 1 option this season. And say what you want about Davis Mills, but he had some solid games as a rookie, and there are a few very sharp analysts out there that really, really do like his upside. I don't think he's going to all of a sudden go out there this season and be like a top 15 passing talent. I think that is a very optimistic projection. He is probably not going to be an above average passer this season, but he's going to be more than capable. And I really don't think we should view him being quarterback as like some huge negative for Brandin Cooks. Cooks had a 27% target share last season, 24% target share in his first season with the Texans. I think it would be optimistic to think he reaches those numbers, given, like I said, I think Nico Collins takes a step forward. I think Mechie is eventually going to be a solid number 2. But listen, like it's Nico Collins and it's Mechie. You know, Mechie coming off an injury, Nico Collins we think is going to be a solid talent, but we only think it. We don't really know it at this point. And again, neither one of them are going to challenge Cooks as the number 1 receiver in this offense. It is definitely going to be Brandin Cooks this season. And since I still believe in Davis Mills' talent, and I believe that the additions of Mechie and Pierce as well, along with second year for Collins, you know, I think those are going to be like really good additions to the offense and like improvements to the offense. I think that this passing attack is going to look a little bit better than people are expecting. And so that's obviously good news for Brandin Cooks. As for Mooney, his situation is definitely improving. So whereas Cooks, you can kind of argue it both ways, and maybe you could just say it's going to be similar to maybe a slight downgrade for that target share. For Mooney, you just know things are improving. Not only is this like a Matt Nagy-less offseason, but, you know, it's the first where Fields will enter the offseason, go through the whole offseason, and enter the season as the clear-cut starting quarterback that's getting all the first-team reps that people just know is the starter. Remember, he was a raw 22-year-old rookie last season. He was just being thrown in to game action. Matt Nagy, refused to give him first team reps over the summer, never fully committed to him. He was always committed to Andy Dalton. Every time people asked, it was like, Andy Dalton's our starter. Andy Dalton's getting these first team reps. It's like, it made absolutely no sense. And then, of course, we see Dalton get injured and Fields just kind of thrown in there. That's a really messy situation for especially a very young, raw rookie quarterback to be thrown into, especially when you combine that with the coaching staff wasn't very good. And so it's just a really bad situation. I think in his second season, improved coaching, all that time to develop, it's going to be a really good positive for Fields, which is obviously a positive for Mooney. The negative for Fields is that, well, it's only Mooney. You know, Cole Kmet is great, but he's not going to catch 120 balls, right? Allen Robinson is gone, and so this wide receiver core looks like Mooney, Pringle, Velus Jones Jr., N'Keal Harry, and Equanimeous St. Brown. So while the exact order is going to kind of become more clear as we work our way into the preseason, into week 1, it's a pile of garbage behind Darnell Mooney. And his 140 targets from last year might be his floor if he can stay fully healthy, which he's done thus far in his career, only missing one of a possible 33 games. And it makes, his chance of finishing with that really spiked season, something you obviously look for with what is these are all middle round picks. You'll want that upside to say, hey, if things go their way, could they finish, say, top 5 in targets? Well, Mooney finished 11th last year, and the competition only got worse, and the quarterback play is likely, very, very likely, almost a lock, to improve. So if the coaching is also going to improve, yeah, there's a chance he finishes top 5. And I think the coaching is another aspect we really, really need to consider here. The old staff, they never push the ball downfield. I don't 100% know the reason why. Allen Robinson is perfectly fine being used downfield. Mooney is literally that's his specialty. He's fantastic on deep routes. And so why they were limiting everything so close to the line of scrimmage makes absolutely no sense. let Mooney use his dominant 94th percentile speed. He's going to burn corners, and he's proven when they give him that opportunity, he's really, really good at it. I think this new coaching staff is going to utilize his speed more effectively, and that again is only going to mean good things for Mooney and Fields. Lastly, we have Rashod Bateman, who's also in line for a very improved situation. Marquise Brown leaves behind 146 targets. Sammy Watkins leaves behind 49 targets. That is 33% of the target share gone between only 2 players. And while you could say that, oh, maybe Mark Andrews sees more work, I mean, it's not like he can expand that much on his 153 targets. Like, Mark Andrews is already heavily involved. They can't just go out there and give him 250 targets, okay? That's just not going to happen. So among these 3, Bateman is in line for the biggest workload increase, though to be fair to the others, it's needed. I mean, he was outproduced by Khalif Raymond and Deontay Hardy last season, so he needs the biggest increase in production. That massive target share being gone, it does make things a little bit difficult to project. Had we only been missing like a few percent, you can easily kind of divvy that out amongst players. But when you're missing a huge chunk of the passing offense, you don't really know with 100% certainty what a team is going to do to fill that. Sure, it's easy to just project Bateman for 1 billion targets, but again, we don't know how things are going to change. And so there are 2 points that we should really consider here. First, they're going to be a much more run-heavy offense this season and are extremely likely to run fewer total plays. Back in 2020, when the offense scored 4.5 more points per game, they ranked 25th in plays per game, first in rush attempts per game, last in pass attempts per game. That's more what you should expect from Baltimore. Not last season when they were first in plays per game, third in carries per game, that makes sense, but 9th in pass attempts per game. That is not where they want to be. And the offense, obviously wasn't as great last season. They increased from 2020 to 2021, 7 plays per game, which is fine. Like, they can run more plays, but they increased by 10 pass attempts per game, which is not what they want to do. And you can further confirm that that's not what they want to do by looking at the draft. They lose Marquise Brown. They lose Sammy Watkins. What do they do in the draft? They draft 5 defensive players, a punter, 2 offensive tackles, 2 tight ends, and a running back. They are going to run the football, try and win with their ground game and defense. They are not going to try and win with a dominant passing attack. And while that's not the end of the world for Bateman, because it could just mean that they're very consolidated, when they do throw, it might just be to Andrews and Bateman. So you don't need a ton of pass attempts. You don't need to be this highly prolific passing offense if you're kind of consolidated into like 2 players. But there is a chance that he sees fewer targets than people are currently expecting, just as a function of how this offense is going to look. And that's further amplified by my second point, in that they might sign a veteran free agent. And while there's no one out there that's going to be like some massive hit for Bateman's value, they've talked about how much they want to add a veteran. And as of recording this, they could still sign Julio, Fuller, Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, Odell. All those players are, again, as of recording this, unsigned. And it's not like any of them come in and just crush Bateman to make him a late round pick, but they would obviously negatively impact him, especially when we consider lower volume expected. They're probably not going to finish first in plays per game by a good margin this season. So if that comes down, if they're more run heavy than last year, especially when they get into the red zone, and they're still obviously going to use Mark Andrews a ton, you can see a path where Bateman has fewer targets than people are expecting. So how do we rank these 3? As you may have been able to guess, I have Bateman last, and it's not really all that close. I still love him as a player. I think he has a ton of upside, especially long term, but I do think he's being drafted a little bit too early because people are projecting the best case scenario even before we really know how this depth chart is going to look. They're basically projecting and drafting him as if there's no chance anyone comes in and there's no chance they go super run heavy and they just don't throw it all that much. But both those are absolutely possibilities that need to be factored in. Between Cooks and Mooney, I like Mooney more. Not only does he have the highest target ceiling in this group, but he projects as the winner. Even with me being pretty conservative with his projection overall, I have him with, I believe you'll see it on the screen, 140 targets in a full season. But if I had to guess, I would say he'd be closer to 150 plus targets. But if I project him like that, then, 100% of people who have the draft package would have him on their team. And there's just no reason to have him ranked like 15 wide receiver spots above ADP. But he is such a phenomenal pick. And I have, a good amount of target share left over in the projection. So even if I was thinking about this, well, what if they have a terrible wide receiver core? What if they bring a free agent in? It's very easy for me to just bump other players down. I have players projected for more targets than I think they're even going to get in this passing attack. If they brought in Julio or Fuller or something like that, or someone like that, I guess, then it would be very easy for me to throw that player in and really not impact Mooney's target share at all. So it's not as much of a negative to him, whereas it absolutely is for Bateman. So my final ranking among these three: Darnell Mooney, Brandin Cooks, Rashod Bateman third. And the rankings are the same no matter what scoring format you're in. So things are very easy for us this time. So that'll do it for this week's player breakdown. Let me know, again, who you want to see next week in the comment section below. And please upvote the responses you agree with. I'll be back tomorrow to go over 5 league-winning wide receivers. Then Saturday to go over the biggest ADP changes over the last week. And then Sunday video starting this week to go over some underrated players in drafts right now. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.